Good evening from Tokyo and welcome to our weekly Frosties FinTech session. I realize that we haven't really spoken much about Frosties so far. I'm really boring today, if you can see this. My favorite zero alcohol, zero calorie beer. So with my Frosty for tonight, probably going to make it a bit more interesting during future events. So we do this on a Wednesday this week. Due to other commitments, we'll be back to our Tuesday slot, 9 o'clock next week. So hope we can join us then, and we'll cover our Japan FinTech Observer number 147 for the week ending January 18th. And here it is. So it's been another interesting week, no doubt. We now know that there will be elections in Japan coming up on January 8th. And clearly, I think you've seen, if you're on social media, all the JGB charts that have been shared, and the 10-year moving to 234, 235 yesterday, the 40-year moving over 4%. So gave back a little today. People are worried, or let's say the market is pricing in Takaichi victory and a solid majority, so she can implement her plans. And in the tradition of former Prime Minister Abe, the expectation is that that would be a spending budget, which they dispute so far. So we shall see. However, there are consumption tax breaks probably coming to address the cost of living crisis, and it does have the markets a little worried. So for those who are interested, we try to summarize most of the discussion in 10 points at the end of the newsletter in the last word, across all the political commentators and the economists that we follow. So we might get to this. I will speak for about 30 minutes, or the session overall should be 30 minutes, probably not much longer. And if you have any questions, depending on the platform you're on, LinkedIn, YouTube, or X, you can leave a comment, and I should be able to see that and respond to that as well. The other headline that was happened last week, but we already covered last Tuesday as well, is Alpaca raising a round that makes them a unicorn. Congratulations again to Hitoshi and Yoshi and the whole team. We're actually super excited that in the conversations we had over the last year, Alpaca sees value in the Tokyo FinTech meetup, and so they will support us throughout the year. Also for them to get a more brand recognition in the Japanese market, given that they Japanese founded, but headquartered in California. They're probably better known in the fintech circles around the world than they are actually in Japan. And something with the latest investment round through SBI as well, it's probably going to change a little bit in 2026. So you're going to see a bit more from the team overall, which is great. So if you are in Tokyo and you'd like to join us for the in-person, totally offline meetup, that will be then a week from now on Wednesday, the 28th. The original version of the newsletter, I think I wrote February, and somebody actually picked this up. Thank you for that. In all the craziness that's going around the world, and of course, the criminal investigation into the Fed governor, Jay Powell, the world's central bankers wrote a letter of solidarity, which kind of kept with Powell's address, which was very succinct and was also very short here, this message of solidarity. found it remarkable that Ueda, as the head of the Bank of Japan, did not sign it. And we're not getting too political here, but the question is, right, whether Takaichi, with the election on February 8th, summit with Trump coming in March, it will be looking for much more of a US alignment, which clearly at this point, probably Trump has pissed off everybody else. Right? Clearly, the Europeans are moving away, and the Chinese anyway. So we shall see. Didn't bode really well for, especially since there were some discussions around the independence of the Bank of Japan as well. And so I hope Ueda will get the support from his peers if he gets into similar trouble. So let's talk about what's going on. We talked about Alpaca. SMBC created a corporate venture capital fund last year in the US, a $300 million fund in the middle of the year, which now made its first investment into an AI governance risk management platform. So that's off to a good start. The first investment is critical from a marketing and market perception perspective. And so you were really going into hot technology, foundational technology. Good for them. We'll see later. They also made an appointment here in Japan for their corporate venture capital program. So that's good. We noticed two new funds coming. One, Minerva Growth Partners, which is Tokyo-based. A growth fund with $130 million corporates doesn't really sound that big, but since there is a scarcity of growth capital, we have many seed and early stage investors. Clearly, every little drop helps here, and still a good sign for the market after probably a medium quality year in 2025. So we're back where we were in 2023 in terms of total fundraising across the startup ecosystem. And more is a specialist financing question here from Mercuria and Daiwa, Daiwa Securities and Daiwa Asset Management together, actually creating a $1 billion fund. Japan is a very, very big market for airplane financing, and this will be a new structure on an open-ended basis rather than have a fund with a fixed term. So interesting creation here, and certainly also attracting to get the savings into asset management. So here, announcement that I was referring to earlier. So the head of Honda Ventures left to join SMBC in SMBC Edge, which is the domestic CVC branch. So the gearing up, and they have certainly done very deep venture capital expertise, 10 plus years in his previous role. So good for SMBC, buying some expertise there. Insurance. We're starting with one that we have to catch up on because we missed it in the prior week, but there doesn't necessarily matter. There is a tender offer going on from Nippon Life for medical data vision, which, as this lovely notebook LM created graphic shows you, is really about all the data. I shouldn't say data is a new all. I think we're beyond that, but clearly the acquisition here is driven by being able then to offer services beyond the core insurance business and go into data, health, etc. So that tender offer is going on until early February 3. So we missed it in the first week, but it's still going on. So you haven't missed it. If you have any shares and you want to tender, you can go straight ahead. And then I think people are a bit speechless and don't know what to say anymore about the governance issues in the insurance sector. We had the big motor scandal before, where auto insurance, where the body shops essentially were damaging cars in a fraudulent way to inflate the repair cost. And so as a result of that, all the major property and casualty insurers in Japan are actually still under business improvement orders. Typically takes, I'd say, 2 to 3 years to get out from under them, and especially in this case, since these are conduct issues. Clearly, there is some systems that need to be built, but it's lots about changing the conduct and the culture. So it's not an easy thing to fix. And now here in Prudential, again, financial wrongdoing with 100+ people involved. And this is, Prudential has a good business here in Japan, but 100 people is a large part of their organization. So that's not good for the industry overall, still will destroy further trust and lead to further reorganization, because ultimately you get much more of a separation, most likely, between distribution and manufacturing of the policies, and make the agents much better governed, less incentivized purely by money, by commissions on the premiums sold, and really independent. So they're already independent brokers like Hoken or Madoguchi, etc., and that will just take it further. So the face of the industry is changing. We have seen other transactions, like the internal agency for Mitsubishi Chemical got bought by Aon last year. That was probably the most notable transaction there. And you wouldn't be surprised if there are more coming in around that as well. So insurance, you've got the really good stuff going on, because the big insurers certainly investing a lot outside of Japan, or here, as we've seen with Nippon Life, also inside Japan. There's been quite a bit of M&A activity in the sector. This is great in terms of also diversifying the revenue basis outside Japan, outside of this shrinking market. On the other hand, we have severe governance issues there. So it's a space clearly that is hard to tackle from a, let's say, fintech, insurtech perspective, right? Insurtechs, yes, as a service provider, and there's been quite a few companies that have been very successful here, but to build a neo broker or a neo insurance company is really, really hard, and from a capital perspective, the latter virtually impossible, not only in this market, but in most markets globally. So you can see digitalization, yes, better governance, yes, AI use, yes. Do you see a new insurer coming in and tear up the competition? No, probably not. And that's been different clearly on the banking side, where we have 3 dominant marketing groups, but we also have SBI Holdings nibbling to be the 4th mega bank. So turning to banking, grouped it under banking, Money Forward, really like one of the OG fintechs, if you want to classify them there, as kind of personal financial manager, accounting software. So it's actually a little bit more of a SaaS play, but they also have quite a good corporate venture capital arm that turned their results for 25 fiscal year into positive. So at the operating level, it's still a bit challenging, although it has been improving. You can see the revenue numbers here in terms of the sales growth, etc. But their M&A activity and CVC activity has been stellar. The way the market worked, if you look at the chart for money forward since the announcement, they were around 4,400 yen, I think. They jumped for 2 or 3 days to 4,800, 4,900 range. And then with the general market sentiment over the last 2 days, I think we're back to before the announcement, essentially same level, 4,400 or even lower, 4,300. So if you're looking for a play in terms of a relatively mature, because they have been around for a while, but also still fast growing fintech, then it's worth taking a look at, I think, and you can play with the volatility. As always, do your own research, and this is not investment advice. But we do have, for example, on the IPOs that took place last year in Korean and Fundinho, you can find on the Japan FinTech Observer website quite comprehensive breakdown of their IPO documents. So take a look if that's of interest. SMBC was compensating last week a little bit for the bad news in the prior week when it leaked that they were shutting down Genius Bank, their new digital bank in the US, after about a 30-month run. So doesn't feel like they've tried too hard, and maybe seen that it's really tough to acquire the competition with all the special rates that are being thrown out, which is now starting in Japan as well, of course. But it's always funny if you see this, right? Because for anybody starting a business here in Japan, the one thing that you hear right off the bat is typically that you need to show your commitment to the market, right? It's always being said that Japanese are afraid that you bring your business here, you try it for a year or 2 or 3, and then you find it too hard and you withdraw your operations, which is exactly what Genius Bank did here. So it's like maybe not the best messaging, but then clearly, right, we've seen MUFG selling their retail operation in the US, Union Bank in California, to US Bank. And I think it's really, really hard these days to run a multinational global retail banking operation. Clearly, Revolut is trying to do this, to become what Citibank was once. But it's also that in Japan, the expectation actually was that Revolut is working through the banking license and would get it October-ish last year. So we're beyond that. Right? Things do take quite a while until the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So we shall see. It is important in the banking context for foreigners, because Revolut would clearly be a bilingual offering, and among all the folks supporting that were originally supporting foreigners in multilingual capabilities like Sony Bank and also SBI Shinsei, they're withdrawing that support slowly, it seems. And well, I think most applications kind of work well, at least if you use them in the web browser and you use translation, but it still feels we're in 2026 and having multilingual support shouldn't be that difficult. So anyway, SMBC has been super successful with Olive, which is their neobank, essentially. And as part of that, it's a joint venture between SMBC Bank and Sumitomo Mitsui Credit Cards, and originally Visa. So when they launched, they had brand new functionality from Visa that they could deploy here as the first worldwide, which was attractive in terms of switching between debit card and credit cards. So doing interesting stuff, have accumulated several million customers, and they are now, through their credit cards, are going to offer a foreign currency investment service. So essentially, it's up to 100,000 yen a month you can set. It will be a set date at the end of the month where the conversion happens. The conversion will be without any FX fees. And at least on the way in, there was nothing mentioned if you actually then want to bring your euros or dollars back into Japanese yen, then you might still pay the banking fees. And you get a pretty good point package. So if you use the maximum, you get 3% in points, right? And you can do like literally a cost dollar averaging if you change your Japanese yen into USD, which we're kind of hovering around the intervention rate range, which seemed to be at 160 starting for the Ministry of Finance. So you make your own determination whether that is now actually a good point to swap out of Japanese yen. Some people might think it's a good time to do the trade the other way around. Again, not here to give investment advice. Quantum alliance between Fujitsu and Standard Chartered, that was originally announced last year as well. So they have made progress. They now call this Qubitra, and trying to commercialize quantum technology in the financial services sector. Good for them. Clearly, I think good partner for Fujitsu. With Standard Chartered's also CVC arm, and clearly they would be willing and able to sell into other groups as well. Next one, I mentioned Olive before, which is the consumer neobank, quote unquote, from SMBC. They also now started a trunk as a corporate bank, and Infurium, which I just mentioned before, which went public in the fourth quarter last year, had taken SMBC corporate venture capital the year before. Not surprisingly, they're going to use their payment stack and the functionality for invoicing and paying invoices by credit cards in that corporate bank. If you are looking for a space, looking for a bank in that space, even for startups, might be worth taking a look at. They run some campaigns now to also dial up the heat on the corporate side, not only on the retail side. So might be worth giving it a try. And if you give it a try, please feedback to us. We're always curious to hear if these companies actually do support startups, and then especially foreign founded startups in these new initiatives, which still seems to be a struggle at times. SMBC, again, they were overcompensating this week, got an approval to do a subsidiary rather than a branch in India. So the subcontinent continues to be a great place for Japanese banks to invest, make acquisitions, and expand the business. Payments and typically, I group the stable coins under payments rather than under digital assets. So that's where you find most of these. So JPYC as the only pure stable coin as a money transmitter, vis-a-vis tokenized deposits, which came out much earlier, although with a very regional focus. So, for example, with Hokoku Bank, JPYC got approval last year, also September-ish, and now it's out there, right? You can actually go to the website, you can go through KYC, you can buy JPYC, and then what you do with it is a bit of a problem still. Here, they're going to do an integration, a retail test that actually will be together with the stereo terminals that Sumitomo Mitsui Card Company has, and they are ubiquitous. So actually doing this proof of concept will hopefully then open the doors to wider adoption. And they had another announcement this week, yesterday, where they were saying that Line Next, which is the US crypto exchange out of Line, which is now LY Corporation, Line Yahoo Corporation, as a combined corporate parent. So the US entity is looking to also integrate JPYC as a payment into the messenger. Of course, would be a good win. All of these announcements are a bit so, right? We're making announcements that we're considering doing a pilot together, and then eventually we'll go live. So these are not multi-week turnarounds. These are multi-month turnarounds. And until these things go live, still, I think we have quite a bit of runway. Many of the programs or pilots, partnerships that have launched last year when stablecoins became hot, like there was also something, Polygon and Sony Bank, they have not come out publicly again. So you wouldn't expect that necessarily before a 12 months term. It would be 12 to 18 months after that announcement. That's how long it took Hokoku as well to go live. And so there might be more announcements of actually implementations this year, but any of these announcements that say we're signing an MOU to then consider pilot and implement a pilot, all of that takes quite a while. So let me take my Frosty here real quick. Settle my throat, thank you. Again, this is 0% beer tonight, so I'm promoting healthy lifestyle for a change. Do have a doctor's appointment again next week, so I want to be cheating a bit and getting in shape before the exam. So Binance came up with a card, announced it for immediate availability for a Binance card in Japan, which is a JCB card issued through LifeCard as an issuer, and it offers 1.6% point returns, which is pretty attractive. If you have a Binance account, you can then apply for this credit card. I got declined with my initial application because I didn't have the time to connect my bank account, and I think they want you to then also set up a bank account to pay your monthly statement with. I hope that's not a foreigner thing and katakana type of name. So I haven't really gone through the full application process. But if you're keen on earning crypto rewards rather than point rewards, here's now an offer for you in the market. Capital markets was interesting. Last week, there is the ongoing fight around taking Toyota Industries private. And the initial offer from Toyota Fudosan as part of Toyota Group was deemed too low, also from the independent valuation, quote unquote, which led to an immense 200 yen increase in the offering price, I believe. So would have been 18,600 before, now it's 18,800. And the good people at Elliott say this is not enough, and we're drawing a line in the sand now, essentially not tendering and telling everybody else not to tender, simply because a big part of Toyota Industries' value is in subsidiary holdings and among Toyota Group, also including Toyota Motors. And since this initial offer was made some 6 months ago, the stock market, especially in Japan, has been on a rampage, and so these holdings are worth 40% more, Elliott says, than at the time of the offer. So these 200 yen on top really don't make a difference, and you need to shell out a bit more. Ultimately, Elliott doesn't want to tender this at all and thinks that as a standalone entity, if you actually sell these holdings and invest them into protective use, or you give it out as dividends and return it back to shareholders, that these would be worth 40,000, so more than double. So it's going to be interesting if you looking at learning about the governance in Japan and the governance code and how this all works in practice. Clearly, that's a very good case study. And the letter that we link here is certainly worth reading. It's about 8 pages, so it's not too much to ask for. The second transaction, again, it's a bit of a catch up from the prior week. It actually happened on, it was 18th, 11th, on the 9th of January, and we didn't include it in the past week. Now, it's interesting for us that apparently the Japan FinTech Observer is now popular enough that good friend who's working at Vantage Capital Markets said, like, oh, you didn't cover our acquisition. So they got acquired. They have a solid presence here in Tokyo, but then also in Hong Kong and Dubai, and ICAP bought them. So good for them. We'll see how that pans out. Always exciting for the people if they have equity and they've got exit trigger clauses, etc. Small announcement from MUFG on the banking side, but they created a trading entity in Singapore to provide structured products in trade financing. So again, Southeast Asia focus for the 3 mega banks. I think more and more you will see that, especially now that SMBC has put down their US retail adventure. So digital assets, I didn't capture much in the past week, but we did sign on again to support the Team Z Summit, which we've done on and off, I think, since inception. Always spread the word. You can get a 10% discount on the ticket price at any time by using our discount code Tokyo FinTech 2026. The last few years, The event was held in Toronto Hills. Team Z clearly has outgrown that. Going to Hapoen, fascinating venue. It's 3 conferences in one. There will be meetup spaces as well. So we might be partnering with somebody who wants to host something in the same venue and present to our community. Will be April 7th and 8th. Mark your books. Interesting time. The list of side events, pre-events, post-events is already growing. And that's, of course, then just about a month after Japan FinTech Week, right? There was a publication in Japanese media of a blockchain outlook here in Japan that covered over 120 individuals. So we've taken that, popped it into our LLM, and said, like, find the common themes out of it. So rather than having 123 individual viewpoints here, you get what the experts and the people in the industry think resonates and will be the focus for this year. I think they came out quite well. And if you want to read all individual stuff, then you can go back to the original document as well. So quick reminder, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment box and I should be able to see them. As I said before, in the last word, we have 10 takeaways from the now upcoming election and what it means in terms of, right, everything that comes with it: JGB prices, BOJ behavior, wage growth policy, etc., consolidated across everything we've read from economists and other pundits. So it's again, pretty concise list, I think. If you're interested in understanding what is all at play, these are 10 very good points, I think. And I won't go through this here today. To conclude, and I've already talked again much more than my 30 minutes, there's a few things that happened offline this week. And so one is very interesting. Japan as a market is still very interesting to people who are looking at it from the outside. It's probably also still a bit mysterious, as it always is, contradictory at times. And the question simply is, what is hot in Japan if you look at the fintech space? And the answer was, well, would you really start the journey there if you had free choice, right? The point is that fintech continues based on various measures. Like if you look at the type of startups that JETRO supports, that go into the various programs, etc., the funding rates, would say it's about 12 to 14% of the startup ecosystem. For that, it's actually a very successful sector because probably still the biggest exit in Japan was the PayPal acquisition of Paydi at 2.8 billion. Now, Alpaca, which we claim as part of the Japanese statistics, although the gentlemen, co-founders, ultimately found success when they went to Y Combinator and incorporated in California. We have a unicorn. Then we have 2 unicorns in the pipeline, which also similarly, one is Omise, headquartered in Bangkok, as originally payments company, blockchain payments company, made payments acquisition in the US. So again, Japanese founded, but headquartered outside. And then we have Gojo & Company, who raised last year at $850 million US. So if they did another round, they would break the $1 billion dollar mark as well. They are actually headquartered here in Japan, but all the business is Southeast Asia and then like going as far west as Georgia, the country, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, I think. So doing alternative lending, buying shares in local banks, etc. So you see the pattern, right? That these businesses are doing working abroad. It might be Japanese founded. So I think we'll still wait for some of the activity for domestic unicorn. So it's very hard to see, right? What is interesting. I think there was a list of the next unicorn published in the Nikkei, 20 or so names, and JPYC's comment on X was, well, please put JPYC on your radar screen as well as the front runner for Japanese stablecoin now. So clearly keep an eye on that. But the questions are coming in. So the interest is still there. It always just takes a long time, right, from the initial attempt into the market to them actually getting traction. The other way, rather than building organically here, is of course to buy, and there are various buyers in the market right now for broker-dealer entities or for asset management companies trying to maybe shortcut a bit a greenfield build with the investment it requires and the regulatory oversight, right? On the other hand, your business model needs to be approved by the regulator anyway, and even if you buy an entity, if you want to do different things in that entity, you still need to go a process to amend your business plan, get it approved, etc., which again is the timely part. So you probably cut out a little bit of time. You also have some integration costs, and you've got the legacy systems or the legacy organization that you need to adopt. So it's a difficult question to weigh, but especially on the broker-dealer side, it's you would think it's mostly a loss leader, right? Given that we're in the domestic market with SBI Securities, Rakuten Securities, and also other providers now having a no-fee offering. It's really hard to compete with a big zero, of course. So you need to have a plan that leads you to profitability by attracting customers through your initial offering, have that as a loss leader, and then over a reasonable time frame demonstrate a profitable business model to the regulator. So we'll see how that maps out. And those are like from the conversations last week were like two things I wanted to point out, right? So the general interest, saying what is software, where should I look at, and secondly, people actually not looking to come here and natively build, but actually do an M&A transaction, which of course at a rate that's near 160 or 158 today, I think, it's relatively easy if you have US dollars in your pocket, or euros for that matter, right? The euro did well against the US dollar too, so it's probably, if you have euros in your pocket, you're even better off to pull a transaction here in Japan than if you had US dollars. So that's enough rambling from me. That's it for today. This will be available, obviously, as a recorded session on all the platforms we put it out on. So last week as well, I think we had obviously many more people watching parts of this afterwards rather than listening live today. But I hope that as we continue doing these, we'll do get some questions, and I'll check whether the streaming software here works properly so that I'm not missing stuff that might have come in the comments. But if there was any, I will respond independently. So again, if you are in Tokyo on January 28th, right, check my feed, check my Luma, and you're welcome to request an invite, right? That's how it's done today. You don't get to just register. You need to go through the approval process. There's certain elements we don't want in our community, so we're going to filter them out. So we reserve the right to be stricter, as does anybody else these days, right? So nothing wrong with that. So before that, we'll be online again on Tuesday, the 27th, and then offline on the 28th. So hope to see you next week at least once. And until then, have a good time. See you soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye.